Hey guys, I hope you all can see me. It's Linda Rayner here. Welcome everyone. Let me know right now if you can see me and hear me. I just want to make sure that everything's working. So let me know. Hi everyone. Let me know if you can see me and hear me. Let me know if you can see me. If you can see me, say yes. If you can see me, say yes. If not, then I'll have to figure out what's going on. Okay, so you can see me, but it's not moving. Excellent. Okay, so I'm not moving. It's okay, guys, just bear with me. I know you can see me, and I know the video is really crappy, and that's actually the internet's fault. If it's going to be this choppy, I think we're just going to have to deal with it, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is let's start off with everyone. Okay, let me just try one more time, and if it's going to continue to be like it, we'll just have to deal with it. 1 second. Okay, guys, so we're just gonna have to deal with it. You can hear me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to switch it to this screen. All right, so what I'd like to do is to get everyone to, why don't you guys, let's see here, start off with, okay guys, so let's just get this started. All right, so what I'd like you guys to do is you're here today for this live training and Q&A session that I'm sharing with you on my exact tips on what you need to do to land your dream job. And this is the first live session, as you can tell, of many more in the future. So let's just get this started. What I'd like to do for the people who are still, we're waiting for a few more to show up, why don't you guys tell me in the live chat the job title that you'd love to land next and where you'd like to live. Or sorry, where you currently live. So the job title that you'd love to land next and where you live. Let's see some answers rolling in. Anyone? I have a bit of a delay, I'll be honest. So your chat's answers are coming through just a little bit later than I'm seeing it. Where are your answers, guys? What is your dream job and where do you live? What's your dream job and where are you coming from? All right. Okay, Lucky, software engineer, Philippines. Leaf, IT director, Portland. Awesome. Vanessa, paralegal. GA, I'll be honest, I don't know where that is. What's GA? Shamim, accounting manager, Toronto. Awesome. I'm also from Toronto. Steve, Julie, student affairs, executive director. Awesome. Okay, guys. Welcome everyone. So like I said, for all those that have just recently joined, this live training and Q&A session is to share with you my exact tips on what you need to do to land your dream job. And so you know what, I think we're just going to get started now that we're in. And yes, keep sending in your dream job titles and your locations. Okay. So a lot of people have watched my YouTube videos, have studied them well, and have successfully landed jobs using my interview and resume techniques, and that makes me so happy. But there are also people who I have spoken to who have tried to use my techniques, and this is just them purely relying on my YouTube videos. Okay, so that's first thing. They didn't get help from me one-on-one, but there are some people who have tried to use my techniques, they'll watch my videos, and they're still finding that they're not getting the results they want. And so I decided that I wanted to go on this live training to talk to you guys a little bit more about that. Because there's a good reason for why, for some of you, it's not working. Okay, because finding a job isn't about following a template. And as you notice in some of my videos, although I try to be as strategic as possible, when it comes to talking about, you know, how do you put yourself in front of employers and how do you position yourself strategically? How do you brand yourself? I mean, these are all internal concepts that you need to really understand before you can apply the technical step-by-step, really the steps that you can implement. See, the internal happens first, then the external is just sort of an afterthought. And it's easy to think that if you just follow a certain template or that, you know, you say a certain thing, that that's enough to get you a job. But I can tell you, and you know yourself, now that you've been looking for a while, that there's a lot of competition out there. And trying to find a job when you're, you know, in competition with, who knows, 10, 20, 30, 100, 500 other people, you know, you have to be able to stand out in a certain way. And so it's not just about saying the right thing, and it's not just about having, you know, a decent looking resume. It's really about having, you know, top-notch a top-notch resume and knowing exactly how you're going to position yourself in the interview. So what I mean by this is that the way that you'll answer an interview question will be different from the way that another person answers it, even if you're following my strategy and my techniques, because obviously you have unique experience and achievements, but most importantly, it's also about how you're connecting with the employers. It's about your energy, the vibe that you're giving off, and the way that you're being perceived by them. And so this is what I mean when I talk about personal branding. It's all about knowing how to sell yourself effectively. And if you don't know how to do it, you won't get past that first round of interviews, no matter how many interview invites you get. I mean, I even had a client who, over the last 2 years on his own, he had over 40 interviews. And he came to me saying, I've had over 40 interviews in the last 2 years. Why do I still not have a job? And I was asking him the same thing, to be honest. Why did he not have a job? He had 40 interviews. How could you not land a job? And what I discovered once I, looked closer at his resume and looked at the way he was positioning himself and talking about himself in his interview questions and answers, it was really about him not knowing how to sell himself effectively. And it really starts from start to finish. It starts from the resume all the way through down to the final job interview. So you need to be able to do this. So the things I'm going to share with you today are probably things you've heard before, but I'm going to, try to be as clear with them as possible so that you guys really hopefully can take away some nice nuggets of wisdom for yourself and be able to apply that for yourself in your job search. All right, so let me know if this sounds good for you. I'd love to hear how you guys are doing right now. I'll be honest, the comments are lagged, so for whatever reason, I'm not seeing everything come up live, which I guess is normal because I'm a bit ahead of you guys, but let me know. Does this sound good? Are you guys ready to hear my tips? Say yes if you are. Let's see him come in. Hello. Let's see it, guys. All right. I can't see them all coming up right away, but that's okay. I trust that you're all saying yes right now because I know you guys can hear me. All right, so let's get started, okay? So here are my exact steps for getting your ideal job offer. So let us get started. Here are my exact steps. First, okay, you guys can start write. I mean, if you want to, you can write in the notes or in the chat to be clear on what you're, if you want to take notes, if you don't have time to type your own notes elsewhere or write your own notes elsewhere, you can just write it in the comments and refer to it after. But the first step to creating the first step, okay, is to create a top-notch resume. So let me ask you guys this question. And actually now I'm starting to see your comments, which is exciting. So I want to ask you guys, how long do you think it used to take me when I was a recruiter, because I was a recruiter for 3.5 years, how long it used to take me to read a resume? I'll let you guys guess for 5 seconds. But basically that time that I'll let you guess is exactly the same amount of time that it took me to read a resume. And and mind you, I wasn't necessarily reading because nobody reads resumes. Not any single recruiter I really worked with ever really truly read a resume in the sense of, going in detail and looking up exactly what it is that you wrote on that paper. Because what it is that they're really scanning, okay? When a recruiter, a hiring manager, an employer is looking at a resume, what they're doing is they're simply just scanning, taking a quick scroll through the resume, and within that 5 seconds, they are determining if you are going to be interviewed or not, if you're going to be put away into the trash bin, or if you're going to be put on top of that to be interviewed pile. Okay? And so what you need to realize is that your resume is so key in getting you in that door, but it's not just about getting you in that door either, because beyond that, it's not just the recruiter or the hiring manager, or sorry, it's not the recruiter or the HR person that's going to be looking at your resume alone. You know, once you get into that first round interview, yes, it might just be the HR person that's looking at your resume, but beyond that, if you get to the second round, guess who's going to be looking at it? The hiring manager. It could be the manager, the senior manager, whoever you'd be reporting into. And then it could be, yeah, now I'm seeing some people say 2 minutes, 5 minutes, awesome. And then beyond that, let's say it's a third round interview, it could be a director that could be reading your resume. So it's really not about just passing that first interview. And this is the common mistake that I find. A lot of people think, well, just like the client I had, he had 40 interviews and he's like, oh, you don't need to help me with my resume. And I knew that I did, because what was happening was that even though he's getting his foot in the door, it was not enough to get him into second round. It was not enough to get him into third round. And that's why he was getting cut off after the first round interviews, or the second round interviews, that is, because once a new set of eyes looked at that resume, they realized that he just wasn't a top-notch candidate. And that's why it's so important to create a top-notch resume. So now you're probably asking, okay, how do you know if your resume right now is top-notch? Well, you're going to want to ask yourself a few questions. You know, firstly, are you getting interviews? Okay, that's obviously an obvious question to ask. And if you're not getting interviews, then obviously that's a clear sign that you don't have a top-notch resume. Now, the second question, though, is that even though you're getting interviews, are you making it to the second and third round and then just not landing the job offer, or are you stopping after the first round of interviews? And what you have to realize about that is that there could be two reasons why you may not be getting past the first round. So the first reason is because your resume is just not good enough to get past once they actually had a closer look at the resume in the interview. Or secondly, it was that the way you interviewed in that first interview, which we'll talk about later, wasn't good enough. So now you guys are probably thinking, okay, so what does this mean? How do I create a top-notch resume? What you need to realize is, in order to have a top-notch resume, the first thing you need to do is to tailor your resumes to the job description. I had someone email me when I sent out that survey for anyone who wanted to ask me questions. Someone asked me, do I have to change my resume every single time I apply for a job? The answer is absolutely yes, you do, because you have to reflect your resume to the job that you're applying for. If you aren't doing that, that's already, big mistake number one. You can't send one random resume across 100 different jobs that have slightly different duties, that all are slightly different titles as well. You just can't do that. You have to tailor your resume to the job description. Someone's asking me, can you talk later about cover letter opening statement? Okay, I'll tell you right now, I never looked at a cover letter when I was a recruiter. I know cover letters are important, but it really depends on the level that you're going for. If you're going for a real senior position, maybe senior manager, director, manager even, and above, the cover letter I find just was not as important. It was really more about your resume and your experience. So back to the resume. The other day, I was helping a client who's a sales director at a global technology company, and he wants to be able to move from his company to a more software digital company, and he wanted to take on a VP of sales role. So what we had to do was we had to tailor it in a way that someone who was hiring for a VP of sales, not a director of sales, but a VP of sales position, would look at his resume and say, yeah, he's interview material. And we had to position him in the resume in a way that, you know, his experience reflected that of someone who's a VP. Now, one thing to note, we did not lie, we did not embellish, we did not make up anything. No, it was not at all about that. What it was about being able to position the resume, to the role, and without, you know, changing titles or anything like that. Still keeping everything authentic and clear, but just being able to do that. So you have to make sure that it's really tailored. Now, secondly, are you including achievements in your resume? So you need to have a separate area underneath your job responsibilities that indicates your achievements. And so achievements are anything where you've helped the company to save time, save money. Okay, so I just saw a comment. I don't think resumes are as important in second or third round interviews. That's fine. You can think that. I disagree, because I know that in a second round interview, a third round interview, you're generally interviewing with different people. And so within each of those interviews, the individual who's interviewing you will still want to look at your resume. So the HR person might have passed you, but this second round, third round interview, they might not pass you because they look at your resume and they realize actually you're not a fit. So sometimes HR, I'll tell you this right now, sometimes HR, they don't know exactly the exact requirements for a position the same way that a hiring manager would, because a hiring manager is much more technical in his or her role, so they know exactly what they're looking for, and an HR person might see a decent looking resume and pass it to the second round, and then once the HR manager looks at it, they're like, actually, they're still not 100% there. Okay, so that's what I think. If you don't feel the way, that's fine. And so moving forward, lastly with the resume is, are you putting it in language that sells? So what I mean by that is, are you speaking in the language of the hiring managers instead of saying, you know, that you did this, did that? Like I've seen resumes where it's just very simple and where they're literally just writing their responsibilities in a very, very short way, which is great. You're being concise, but that's being too concise. You need to, when you're writing your job responsibilities down, you need to be able to mimic the language of these hiring managers, of these companies that you're applying for. So you need to start to understand how job descriptions are being written and then apply that for yourself. Okay, this is a tedious exercise. I know, but you get used to it. If you've been applying to, you know, let's say hundreds of jobs, you'll eventually get used to what the requirements are for certain positions and how they word them as well. And so that's what you need to be doing. But at the same time, not copying and pasting, you need to also add your unique details, add flair, add your own unique flair to it. And when I say unique flair, it means add some of the details that wouldn't be in the job description that is part of what you do. So let's say, and I'll just use a random example. Let's say you say that you develop reports for review by sales leaders. So if you develop reports to sales leaders, you would say, you know, develop monthly, quarterly, and yearly reports to for review by sales leaders. Like you would just add a little bit more detail. That wasn't the best example, but essentially that's what I'm trying to say. Make it your own, make it unique to you, but still keep it true to the types of roles that you're applying for, the job duties that you're applying for. Okay, I'll tell you right now, a boring resume is a resume that goes in the trash, unfortunately. Because if it's not, you know, enticing the hiring manager or the recruiter, whoever's looking at it, then unfortunately it's going to be pushed aside. So you need to make sure it stands out, and these are the ways that it stands out. Okay, so just to recap quickly, the first tip is to create a top-notch resume. I've only just gone through the first tip, so bear with me, guys. There's a lot to cover today. But the first tip is to create a top-notch resume and some highlights. In order to have a top-notch resume, you need to make sure that you tailor it to the job description. You need to make sure that you are using the language of the hiring manager. meaning using the language of the job descriptions and using your unique flair, your unique details in each of these responsibilities that you're putting on. Oh, on top of that, also having clear achievements. You improved something, you saved money somewhere, improved processes or improved profitability, whatever it could be that helped to have a positive impact on the organization. Okay, so that's that. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is to know what you're going to say in the interviews. Okay, so let's check in with some of the comments here. All right, so, okay, so someone asked, I have trouble writing about achievements. It's surprising I can finish tasks on time, let alone excel at the task. Okay, well, that's a different problem altogether, edamame. I'll tell you that. But at the end of the day, everyone has achievements. I know people like to be overly humble and say that they haven't achieved anything. But I can tell you, if you did something that made some process a little bit simpler, that is an achievement in itself. So you just have to know how to put that in enticing language on your resume that shows that you did something and it created some sort of result, some sort of impact. That's at the most basic level. That's what you need to think about. All right, so let's move on. So second tip, tip number two to land your dream job is to know what you're going to say in the interviews and make sure that you sell yourself in these interviews. All right, so who here goes into an interview trying to formulate their answers on the spot? Okay, admit it if you do. If you try to formulate your answers on the spot, tell me. Just maybe say something like, yes, I do. Something as simple as that. Let's see them. Okay, because I'll tell you, even if you don't admit it, there are people who I've spoken to where they've done this. And this is the number one mistake. Because you need to be prepared and confident in your answers before you go into the interview. Now, I know this sounds like elementary, basic sort of advice, but I can tell you that there are so many people who I've spoken to who they do not do this. And it's not because they don't want to. It's not necessarily that they don't want to, but it's because they don't know how to prepare for their interview. They don't really know what they're going to say. And instead, okay, let me ask you this. Who here, as part of your preparation for your interviews, spends the majority of your time learning about what the company does? Because you think, oh, they're going to ask me, what do you know about us? And that you should have that down pat. And so what you do the night before the interview is all you do is look up, oh, let me figure out what the company does and what their revenues are and what news articles have come up lately about them. And I can tell you that is maybe one question out of, who knows, 10, 15 questions, if it's a really crazy in-depth interview that they're going to be asking you. And if you only prepare for that, well, for what are you going to do for all the other questions? And what ends up happening is a lot of people, they wing it. And that's sad. You do not want to be winging it, because if you're winging it, like for example, tonight, if I decided to just wing this, I wouldn't know what to say in front of you. I'd say stuff, I'd come up with stuff to say, but it wouldn't be organized. Just be making up stuff on the spot. And I can tell you, this is what people do. They go into these interviews for these, let's say, these director opportunities, these VP opportunities. And what do? They sit there, they get asked a question, and they just come up with an answer that, out of thin air. And unfortunately, that's just not how it's going to work, because why? You're going to be compared to 4, 5, 6, 10 other candidates. And if you're the one winging it, it's going to be very obvious. So you need to be very prepared. So now let's talk about how to prepare. Okay. So let's see. I'm just saying, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Lots of yes, I do. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully that'll change to no, I do not. I prepare well ahead of time. Now, let's see here. when it comes to preparing for your interview answers, I'll give you, because of time constraints, I'll give you an example where a lot of people struggle, and that's with behavioral interviews. Okay, so I'm sure there are a lot of people here. I get it every day, people emailing me telling me I struggle with behavioral interviews. And if you don't know what a behavioral interview is, what it is they're asking you to describe a difficult situation, a conflict, or they give you a specific example of how um, uh, uh, let's say name a time when you had to deal with a difficult manager, or name a time where you had to take on the work of a coworker, or they'll just give you really like specific situations, and you just have to tell a story. That's literally what they want you to do. And what you need to do in order to successfully answer is to be able to tell the story using unique details. Okay? And so when I say unique details, it means knowing how to set up the story in a way that almost, it's like, think of it as though you're telling a story to a friend. Okay? Think of it as though you're talking to your friend and you're saying things like, so let me tell you what happened the other night when I went to go see this movie, and this is what happened in the movie. And you're going to set up the story. You're going to be like, yeah, I sat in the theater, and then this person came by, talked to me, and then this and that. And you're going to start giving them details. It's like you're taking them on a tour. And this is what you need to do when you're answering behavioral interviews. You need to take your employer, the interviewer, on a tour. And so what that means is you need to be able to engage them. So if you're going to give them unique details, you need to set the situation up, telling them how you felt, how concerned you were, how stressed out you were because of this difficult situation that was going on. And so what that does is psychologically, it draws them in. It creates drama and engagement for them. And it really helps them to sort of want to know, like, what did you do? And what it does is, if the more you set it up in a way that creates that sort of drama, once it's like, I have a rule, it's called 60-40, like I just call it 60-40. And what I mean is 60% of the time in that story, you're basically telling them how it was stressful, what was going wrong, what was not working, and you're putting it in that perspective so that they understand the landscape. And then after that, you'll say, and you'll jump right into how you resolved it, and you'll say, so what I did was I took the initiative to implement blah, 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 and that resulted in the improvement, or this was resolved. I mean, you'll put it in better words than that, but essentially that's the formula. Okay, setting it up nicely, really creating that drama, and then taking them to your results, taking them to your what you did, and then the result quickly. And honestly, once you set it up, if you set something up well, it has a huge impact in terms of how they see you, because they're thinking, wow, you went through such a crazy, stressful situation, and all you did was this one thing, but you came up with the idea, you did it yourself, you initiated it, and it was resolved. And it just makes it, it really creates a positive impression on them of you. But what a lot of people do, I'll tell you this, and you probably are experiencing this when you get asked a behavioral question, a lot of people, what they do is they just say, yeah, so there was a time when something happened, whatever it could have been, yeah, I had a difficult coworker, he wasn't helping me, but then what I did was, and they just jump right into how they resolved the situation, and then that was the end of it. And it's just kind of like, okay, that was anticlimactic, like there was no excitement there, right? And so you just have to really learn the 60-40 rule, which is set it up properly, and then, yeah, jump into how you resolved it. Make sure you set it up properly. What makes the interview behavioral? Okay, so I just explained it earlier, but a behavioral interview question is when they're asking you about a specific situation, a specific problem, and let's say they give you an example, like, tell me about a time you had a difficult situation with a coworker, and then you have to come up with that story on the spot. You have to have these stories, by the way, sort of in your back pocket. So you do want to think of all the possible questions that could be asked ahead of time and prepare them accordingly. Come up with the right stories accordingly. All right, so hopefully that helps. What are you guys saying here? Tracy, I landed my last job using your tips. Linda, thank you. However, I didn't take it due to salary was too low. That's awesome, Tracy. And yeah, of course, don't take it if it's too low. Find one that pays you what you deserve, of course. But that's great. Colin says, hey Linda, would it be best to have 2 resumes if I have multiple experiences in different fields? Yes, Colin, absolutely. Have multiple resumes. You don't just have to have 2. If you have different fields, different roles that you want to apply for, then yeah, create as many resumes as you need to be honest. The more the better, in my opinion. Who else? Okay, awesome. Great. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so just to recap, the second tip is to know what you're going to say in the interviews. Make sure that you sell yourself in these interviews. Okay, and so you need to prepare. That means preparing for your answers, meaning predicting what kinds of questions tend to get asked in these interviews and preparing your answers ahead of time, coming up with compelling stories, using your unique details. And when it comes to behavioral interviews, same thing, coming up with the storyline ahead of time, and then using your unique details, telling them how you felt, how you, what you thought in that certain situation, that sort of thing, and how you overcame that. So that is tip number 2, okay? Know what you're gonna say. And I know this sounds basic, but trust me, lots of people try to literally prepare for the interviews on the spot. So that's not the way to go. All right, so on to tip number 3. We're going to talk about knowing how to deliver your answers in a way that really hooks the employer. Okay, so that's your tip number 3, is know how to deliver your answers in a way that hooks the employer. So you want them to be hooked by the end of the interview. So what does that mean? What that means is that you don't want to come off as overly eager and excited when you're not. Like, you don't want to appear fake. And you know, a lot of people think, oh no, I'm not faking an interview. I'm myself. I'm normal. And it goes one of 2 ways. It's either that some people are overly confident in their abilities and skills, and so they don't even bother trying to sell themselves. And then there are some people who try to sell themselves too much because they're, you know, trying to compensate for whatever, like they're just nervous and they just don't know, and they're just trying to overly sell themselves. And that's not, you know, we're trying to find the middle, okay? Because think about it this way: you are your own business at the end of the day. Yes, you may be working for an employer, yes, you may be working for a company, but at the end of the day, you are your own business. And so what does that mean? It means that, you know, you have to be willing to improve yourself consistently. You know, a business always is looking for new ways to improve themselves. And if they're finding that the way that they were interviewing before, like if your business, you yourself, you were interviewing before, it wasn't working, and you do an analysis on yourself and you find, actually, maybe I was coming off a little bit weird in the interview, then you need to rein yourself in. Okay, so you need to do that analysis on yourself and see how you can improve forward. So the real key here is to be real, be yourself, but at the same time, stay pleasant, stay engaged, make eye contact. But if only, if it were all that simple. And so what I'm really trying to say here, this is all stuff I know that sounds like, oh yeah, I've heard this before, but what the key is, and I can tell you, these are people at senior levels, okay, executive levels that I work with who still have this problem, and that is not knowing how to connect with the person across the table. Okay, so when I talk about connecting, and I'll see your comments after, but why don't you guys tell me a little bit about how you struggle to connect with the person across the table, because I bet you that is an issue that you're having. It's not even if you've prepared your answers, coming, you know, into an interview and then feeling like you're sounding like a robot, that's an issue, right? Or you're overly nervous and you're just rambling, that's an issue. right? Or if you're so nervous to the point where you can't say anything, you can't think of anything, that's an issue. And why? Because you're not connecting with the person that's sitting across from you. You're seeing them as though they're a machine of some sort that's just analyzing you, testing you. And instead, you should actually see the interview as an opportunity to connect, as a conversation. Okay? The interview is truly a conversation that's happening. And so what I mean by, conversation, what I mean by connecting is to see them eye to eye. You guys might have seen this in one of my videos where I talked about the consultant approach. Okay, it's not about you going from sitting way down beneath them, looking up to them and being like, please give me a job. And it's not about you guys being way up high looking down and saying, hand me that job. It's really about seeing them at their level, just being real. Right, so I'm just reading your comments, sorry. Tracy, I lost a great position due to being overly eager. I was nervous and they had a panel interview and I was overwhelmed. They all asked questions super fast and I couldn't keep up. I felt like I was ambushed. No one talks about how to handle interviewing in front of a panel of 4 people, how to calm your nerves. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Tracy. Thank you, Jen. So let's talk a little bit about that, actually. When it comes to, that's a good point. When you bring up panel interviews, I know a lot of people get really nervous when it comes to 4 people, 3 people, even just 2 people sitting in front of them, and they're thinking, wow, I really am being tested. And yeah, you could totally see it that way, that you're being tested. And guess what? That's going to cause you to be extremely nervous. And that's going to cause you to probably blank out and really be, shaking in your boots. But see, that's the thing. When I talked about what I talked about at the very beginning of this, I don't know if everybody caught on to that, but what I said was, in order to successfully land your ideal job, the changes that you need to make come from within before you can implement them on the outside, okay? Inside, then outside. That's what I'm saying. So inside, you need to reassess how you're seeing this whole process. You need to reassess how you're seeing yourself in comparison to these 4 interview people, these 4 interviewers, okay? It's really about you coming in. Yes, there are 4 people, but just so happens to be a conversation with 4 other people. And you're going to take your time in the first 5 seconds. So this goes to Jen's question about how to calm your nerves. Give yourself like 5-10 seconds to breathe. Just sit there and breathe and settle yourself down, because guess what? If you don't do that, you're going to be flying around, like you're going to be here, there, all over, bouncing off the walls. Like, it's not going to be good. Let yourself settle, and this takes practice. And so you should start doing that. Sorry, you should start to do that now while you're at home, or while you're at work, whatever it is, before you go in for any meeting or whatever, and give yourself that time to reconnect with yourself. This is a technique that I talk to my clients about, and that they implement, and they find themselves to be way more present when they're sitting in front of whoever. And they're able to come up with the right ideas and come up with the right strategies and be able to negotiate whatever it is. They're able to do that successfully because they've gotten connected to themselves. And so that is the key there. Okay, stop seeing yourself from the outside and see yourself from the inside first. Starts with you, how you center yourself, then you go into the interview, and there you go. You're having a conversation with them. That's sort of the approach. Okay, so Alice asked, the questions employers ask can seem really formulaic. What did she say? How do I make it a conversation when it feels like an oral exam and they don't respond to anything I say? Well, you know what? I'll be honest with you. Yes, like you're going to make it sound like it's a conversation, and but they're probably not going to say much back to you if it's like, let's say, a huge panel, because, they have an agenda and they need to go through. But if it's a one-on-one, trust me, there's opportunity to still get them to engage, and like even if they nod, or if you add in little comments and say like, I know that for this role that's mentioned, you're looking for blah 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 blah, and so what I bring to the table, or not necessarily what I bring to the table, I don't like that phrase, but and so what I'm capable of is being able to blah 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 blah, and watch for their nods and smile and that's the way you connect, okay? So when I say conversation, yeah, it's conversation, but it's still a weird conversation because, yeah, they might not be saying anything back to you, but they'll still be nodding, they'll still be looking at you, right? So it's as much of a conversation as it can get in the context of, an interview. That's where you want to take it to. You don't want to take it to, you don't want to just start at that level of, me versus you. There's a wall between us. I'm being tested. You're the examiner or whatever, and you're testing me. You're grading me. Like, no, that's not the way to see it. All right. And obviously, in order to be able to see them eye to eye, not down here to up there, or not up there to down there, you need a special ingredient to be able to pull this off. And what that is it starts with a magical letter, the letter C. And who can guess what that C word is? I'll just say it's confidence. It'll take a while for me to see your comments. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, you just need to conjure up some confidence out of the blue. And especially if you don't have it to begin with, just find it somewhere. But I'll tell you where you can start to get confidence from. And confidence actually starts from the very beginning. It starts with having a top-notch resume, right? Having a resume that an employer looks at and they go, wow, I really want to interview them. So knowing that you have a top-notch resume gives you a little boost of confidence. Second is knowing what you're going to say in the interview. So not winging it, not coming up with interview answers on the spot. So those lay the foundation to having job search confidence, okay? Once you have a bit of that, it makes it a little bit easier for you knowing that you can go into this interview being like, yeah, I have a good resume. I know that they liked my resume. I already have a leg up because probably the 4 or 5 other people that they're going to interview don't have a top-notch resume because they didn't do the things that I did, and I already explained all that stuff. And then the second is, yeah, I've already prepared for this interview. I can expect what potential questions they might ask me, and so I'm going to prepare, okay? That should give you a little bit of confidence. So you need to go through step 1 and 2 first before you can have this step 3 or go through step 3. But like I said, with all of these steps that I'm talking about, you need to go from within. Start from within first. Identify if you're seriously perceiving yourself in the wrong way. Because honestly, if you see yourself as someone who's negative or just not able to find a job, and I'm already seeing some comments of people being like, I couldn't find a job or this and that. Well, it starts with you first. I'll tell you that much. It starts with you, and take some of the right action steps, and that should get you forward. So lastly, okay, tip number 4, and I'll make this a quick one, but it's to land your ideal job offers to have a diverse job strategy. Okay, I repeat, have a diverse job search strategy. What do I mean by that? Who here, tell me this, who here relies 100% on job postings, or almost 100% on job postings when it comes to looking for a new job? Say yes if you do. Or say yes if you do, because I could tell you that I've spoken to I don't know how many people in the last few days, and I've asked them this question, so how are you finding a job? And all they're saying is, yeah, I just apply online, job postings. And I can tell you that that's not the only way. In fact, it's not as effective for a lot of the time, because for the majority of these companies, they may be getting upwards of 500 resumes at a time for certain positions. And, they're getting 500 resumes at a time. Yours is getting lost in the shuffle. So what does that mean? They're not probably looking at any of those resumes. And I know this from experience, because as a recruiter, the situation was that as a recruiter, these companies would be hiring agencies to find them people because they were so sick of looking at their own systems and finding like thousands of resumes, and they just didn't have the time to scour through them. So they would rely on agencies to hand in maybe 4 or 5 top resumes. And so what you really need to realize is that even if you have an amazing resume, it'll still get lost. So you need different strategies. Okay, when I work with my clients, we discuss multiple ways that can get you in front of the hiring managers. But again, if you don't have a top-notch resume and you aren't prepared for what you're going to say to these people when you meet with them, even if it's another way outside of a job description, or sorry, outside of a job posting, then you can forget about it. You've wasted your time, because first of all, you don't want to sound rehearsed or scripted when you're going to meet these people and hopefully asking for a job, but you do have to know what your approach is going to be. And you know, if you don't want an overly needy or eager approach, if you have an overly needy and eager approach, that's just going to cause them to run the other way. So let's say I said to you, hey, I know that you're looking for this amazing job opportunity, whatever it was, software engineer, and I know the hiring manager for this opening at this amazing company. Why don't you go talk to them tomorrow, have a coffee, and you sit down. Are you going to know what to say? Are you going to be prepared to really, make a good impression? And what does that even mean? So what that comes down to is that, let's say you get these opportunities to meet these people who are potentially hiring for the roles that you want. You need to be able to talk to them like they're a human being and demonstrate your value in a down-to-earth way. Be intentional, but be considerate at the same time. Don't just sit there and be like, here's my resume, do you have any jobs for me? Right? It's a fine balance. And so basically my fourth tip is all about having a diverse job search strategy. And when in my one-on-one coaching program with my clients, we talk a lot about this because it's really important. I've had clients who weren't considered for one job because they hired someone else, but because they learned how to handle their interaction with the employers the right way, they were called and considered for other roles later on, and they landed the position that they were called on. So you really want to have a diverse job strategy so that maximizes your job search and you're not wasting time just simply posting your resume online. Yes, Francis, networking with others within the same field you're searching. Absolutely. It's about networking, but it's not about being fake, because I used to hate the word networking, just simply because it just sounded so like, whatever, sleazy, slimy. Oh, hi, here's my business card. And that's not the authentic way to network. There's really other ways that you can start to develop to make that connection, to have that relationship-based approach when you're approaching people with opportunities for hiring. All right. So, okay, guys. So to recap everything, my 4 tips to landing your dream job. Number 1, create a top-notch resume. Number 2, know what you're going to say in the interviews and make sure that you sell yourself in your answers. Number 3, know how to deliver your answers in a way that really hooks the employer, meaning know how to be engaging, be authentic, but still sell yourself at the same time, see them eye to eye. And lastly, have a diverse job search strategy, okay? Don't just rely on job postings, because that is going to get you some places, yes. So, like, it might land you something, but that might take a really long time. So you want to maximize the way that you're searching for a job. All right, so we are, oh my goodness, we're almost at the end of the hour, and I still have questions that you guys had asked me. And so what I'm gonna quickly go through just one of them for now. Let's see. These are questions that I got from before when people were kind enough to send in their questions. And the first question is Sherman, who happens to also be from Toronto, and he asks, how much personality should I show during an interview? I want to maintain an air of professionalism, but according to some feedback I've received, I need to show more personality and be more relaxed during an interview. And so, okay, so this is the thing, is that, and this is what I meant before, I think it was Jen that asked me, like, how do I have a conversation with them if they're not talking back to me? See, the thing is, they still want to see you. It's like a performance at the end of the day, a performance where you're still being authentic and true to yourself, but it's still a performance. So, you want to show that professionalism, but professionalism doesn't mean be boring, doesn't mean be a robot. No, professionalism means be polite, be courteous, but at the same time, be engaging, be, what do you call it? Connect with them. Have that friendly approach to your conversation with them. stop looking at it as if you're talking to a wall, because you're not. You're talking to a human being. And so they want to feel that connection with you too. And of course, yes, they're going to be assessing you on how connected they feel with you. Okay, fine. But whatever, showcase your energy. And so showcasing your personality just means really knowing how to tell your stories in a unique way. So that's my biggest sort of advice for that. All right. And okay, so let's see. Okay, so I keep getting the same question over and over. How about the fresh graduates like me with no experience to the positions we want to land on? Okay, so this is the biggest problem, is that a lot of people are saying to me, I have no experience, so what do I do? Well, first of all, if you have no experience and you're looking for jobs that ask for experience and that aren't, you really have to be very strategic with your job search. A lot of people think that, they can just apply to anything and hope to get anything. And that's not the case. It's not about applying to anything and hoping that it's going to happen. You need to be strategic. So if you're applying for a role, if you're a fresh graduate, you need to be applying for fresh graduate positions, and so you have to start looking in your sort of in your little market of people who are applying for fresh graduate opportunities and seeing that they've landed them, figuring out, hold on, if they were like me, had no experience, how did they get the job and I didn't? There's something that I'm doing wrong on my resume. And then if I'm getting interviews, there's something I'm not saying in my interviews. So you need to really, really, really pay attention to that. You need to really pay attention to what it is that you're putting down on your resume. And so if you're saying I have nothing to put on my resume, well, you have education, right? You've learned something that's related to the jobs that you want to apply for. So talk about that, right? If you've had any competitions or you've had any sort of whatever, like events that you've participated in, exams, tests, and stuff like that, talk about that because that relates to the role. So you really just need to figure out a way to tailor your experience and knowledge that you've gained in education to the role that you're trying to hire for. Interview for. That's the way you're going to get in the doors, by showcasing what knowledge you have at this point. Yes, I understand you don't have experience, but and if it gets real bad, then yeah, take on some volunteer experience that might give you some skill sets that will help you. All right. Okay. So we're getting close to the end of the hour. And I know that a lot of people still have questions. If you have questions for me, okay, so let me tell you this. Okay, what I need to mention to you is that, for those of you who are at the manager, senior manager, director, VP, C-suite level, and you're ready to take your career to the next level, but you've been struggling to pass the interviews and you're getting fewer and fewer interview invites, then I can help you through my Stand Out and Get Hired coaching program. And so one of my clients last week, we did the resume portion of the program, and in 2 days, he landed 2 interviews. Another client of mine hadn't been getting interviews in a whole year with his resume, so we created that. And in 4 hours, he landed an interview with a large bank. So I'm just saying, if any of you here are interested in chatting further, because obviously I'm trying to give you tips in the 1 hour and we're very limited. There's so many of you online. So I really, you're welcome, Lucky. I hope that helped. So for any of you that are if you're truly looking for your dream job, really wanting to find the next level, I know you asked about how to find a dream career, if there's such thing as a perfect job, Sleepy. There is, and I think it starts with you. It starts with how you see your life and the career that you really want for yourself. Because if you don't believe that there's a dream career, then no, there isn't a dream career for you. But if you believe that there is, then start thinking about how that can come about. That's a whole other type of coaching that I do. But I'll talk about my Stand Out Get Hired coaching program. And so what you'll get is, if you go to lindarainer.com/chat with me, okay, lindarainer.com/ lindarayner.com/chat with Linda and fill out the application form, and you're ready to work with a career coach and you like the stuff that I've shared with you today, then you're definitely going to love the stuff that I share with you in my one-on-one coaching program. And here's the caveat. This is only for you if you've been looking for a job for at least 5 months. You've gone on some interviews, but you haven't been called back. You can't seem to get past the first or second round, and you realize you're doing something wrong. You know that as much as you want to blame the companies or the hiring managers, that it's actually you, and you're ready and you know that you need help because what you've been doing hasn't been working, then I would say reach out to me. Go to lindarayner.com/chat with Linda, okay? And go there and set up a call with me. Just fill out the application form. I'll figure out if there's a good match between you and I, because I'll be honest, my coaching program is nearly fully booked for the next little while, and so I'm very picky on who I take on. So feel free to fill out the application form. It doesn't hurt, and we can see if there's a way that I can help you. This isn't for you, first of all. Also, if you're not willing to change the tactics that you've been using, if you're relying on that hope and pray method to land a job, and you want to keep trying it on your own and wait to see if it works, and you think Googling, even though I come up on Google, but you think that's enough to land you your dream job, and it's still not working, then this isn't for you. Okay, if you still want to keep doing all those things, just relying on the same tactics and that they haven't been working, then don't bother talking to me, because it's just not gonna work. So if you want to work with me one-on-one and you're serious about working with me as your career coach, you can land your dream job. Head over to lindarayner.com/chat with Linda. Okay, Linda, I'll type it in here actually, even though it's not going to show up till a while later. lindarayner.com/chat with Linda. All right. Thank you, Susan. Thanks a lot for your valuable tips. You're definitely helping a lot of people get hired. Thank you, Susan. Thanks, Francis. Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan, if you want to sign up, just head over to lindarayner.com/ I can't even talk, chat with Linda. Hi, Lucky. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. I know you didn't get to see my face, but I didn't want you to see random, images of me opening my mouth wide, because it was super choppy. I'm going to have to change that for next time, so I will definitely fix that. But yeah, Carrie's 90, absolutely. Head on over to lindarayner.com/chat with Linda and fill out the application form. Okay, guys? So if there aren't any other questions, then this will be the end of it. Like I said, I really hope this was helpful to you. This was the first time I did this, so I know that the video wasn't good, but we'll fix that for next time. I hope this will help, and I can't wait to hear about some of the jobs that you guys might have landed after watching this video or after hearing this live training live. So thank